Rain poured down like the sky was angry. Michael stood at the doorstep of the home he had lived in for 12 years, his suitcase getting soaked. His coat clung to his body, heavy with water. He looked up at Jessica, his wife. Her face showed nothing. Not sadness, not guilt, not even anger, just cold distance. She didn't open the door wide, just enough to hand him a white envelope. He opened it slowly with trembling hands. Divorce papers. "What is this?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Jessica looked past him like she couldn't even meet his eyes. "It's over, Michael," she said. "Don't make this harder than it is." He stared at her, too stunned to speak. His lips parted, but no words came. She shut the door gently, without a slam, like it wasn't personal, just business. The soft click of the lock felt louder than a shout. Michael stood there for a few moments, frozen. The rain didn't stop. His suitcase handle slipped in his wet hand as he turned around and walked slowly to his car. It was dark inside, cold. He sat in the driver's seat and didn't start the engine. His mind raced. What had just happened? He thought back to a few days ago. Jessica had taken a phone call in the kitchen. After that, everything had changed. She'd become distant, colder than usual. She started sleeping in the guest room, barely spoke to him. He thought maybe it was stress from work. Now, sitting in the rain, he realized it was something else. He pulled out his phone, opened the news app, and scrolled aimlessly, just to distract himself. But then his eyes landed on something that made his breath catch. A photo. Jessica, smiling, holding a huge lottery check. $8 million. She had won, and never said a word. The date on the check. Just 2 days ago. The same day she told him to sleep on the couch. His heart pounded in his chest. She had planned this. Won the money. Filed for divorce. Kicked him out of his own home. And never looked back. Michael sat there, soaked, alone, and broken. Something wasn't right. And deep down, he knew. This wasn't just about the money. It was betrayal. Michael was never the loud one in the room. He was calm, gentle, and soft-spoken. People often overlooked him, but those who truly knew him saw how deeply he cared. When he was younger, he had a big dream: to open a small jazz cafe where people could relax, enjoy good music, and feel at home. He even had a name picked out, the Blue Note. But that dream slowly faded when he met Jessica. Jessica was full of fire, ambitious, smart, and strong-willed. She wanted to become a nurse, but money was always tight. Michael didn't think twice. He worked extra hours at the hardware store, picked up side jobs, and supported her every step of the way. He paid for her books, her classes, even her rent when they were still dating. When they got married, he took on more so she could focus on school. He believed in her more than she believed in herself. Years passed. Jessica graduated and got her license. Michael kept supporting her, always behind the scenes. He cooked dinner most nights, cleaned the house, did laundry. He never complained when she stayed late at work or came home tired. Even when their conversations became short and cold, he held on. He thought it was just a rough patch. But something in her changed. Jessica had grown up poor. Her parents struggled, and she promised herself she would never live that way again. She worked hard, always chasing more. More money, more status, more control. At first, Michael admired her drive, but after a while, it felt like she was running away from him too. A few months before everything fell apart, Jessica got promoted. She became head nurse at a private clinic. Her hours got longer. She started dressing sharper, speaking less. When Michael asked how her day was, she answered with a single word: fine. When he tried to hold her hand at night, she moved away. Slowly, she was pulling out of the marriage, and he didn't even realize it. They had no children. Michael wanted them, but Jessica always said, not yet. First it was nursing school, then her job, then her goals. After a while, he stopped asking. Their home became quiet. Meals were eaten in silence. They slept in the same bed but lived in different worlds. Still, Michael hoped. He remembered how she used to laugh at his dumb jokes, how she held his hand tightly when they first moved into their apartment. He kept telling himself she'd come back, that the old Jessica was still in there somewhere. He thought if he just gave her space and stayed loyal, things would get better. Before they got married, Jessica had asked for a prenup. She said it was just to be safe. Michael didn't mind. He loved her. The agreement said that if the marriage lasted over 10 years, any money earned after that point would be shared equally, 50-50. Michael signed it without thinking twice. He never imagined needing it. He never thought she'd betray him. Now, looking back, it all made sense. The distance, the silence, the coldness. She was planning her exit. She had already left him emotionally long before she handed him the divorce papers. Michael was the kind of man who stayed when things got hard. Jessica had become the kind who left when things got easy, for her. All he ever did was love her, and in the end, that wasn't
Michael
enough.
was sleeping in his car the night it happened. Parked in an empty grocery store lot, he had covered himself with an old blanket and used his jacket as a pillow. He hadn't slept well in days. The car smelled like rain and coffee. His phone buzzed on the passenger seat. It was a message from his old friend Darren. "Bro, is this Jessica?" There was a link. Michael clicked it. The page opened to a local news story. His heart almost stopped. Jessica was standing in front of a large check, smiling like she hadn't in years. Her hair was done, her clothes new and stylish. She held the check like a trophy. $8 million, state lottery winner. Michael stared at the picture, not believing what he was seeing. He scrolled down to the article. Jessica Moore, 38, claims her winnings as a single woman. She purchased the winning ticket at a gas station near Midtown. Single woman. Michael sat up. His chest felt tight. His eyes went back to the photo. Her smile didn't look forced. It looked real, happy, free. He looked at the date on the article. It was published the day before she served him divorce papers. She had won the lottery 2 days before kicking him out. Everything suddenly made sense. The change in her attitude, the cold goodbye, the rush to end the marriage. Michael's hands shook. He dialed her number. She picked up. "What do you want?" she asked, annoyed. "I saw it," he said, his voice low. "You won the lottery." There was a pause. Then she laughed. A short, sharp laugh. "Oh, that," she said. "Why do you care? You never cared about money. You lied to me." "No, Michael," she said flatly. "I just didn't tell you. Big difference. Anyway, just sign the papers. Don't drag this out." "I'm not signing anything," he said. "We were still married when you bought that ticket." She sighed loudly. "You're not getting a cent. Don't make this ugly." He couldn't believe what he was hearing. After 12 years, she was treating him like a stranger, like someone in the way. "I supported you," he said, "through everything." "And I said thank you," she snapped. "Now go away." She hung up. Michael sat frozen, staring at the screen. His whole world was spinning. Was she ever really in love with him? Or was he just someone to use until she didn't need him anymore? He drove to her apartment the next day, not to beg, not to fight, just to talk. She didn't even let him inside. She stood behind the screen door with her arms crossed. "You're harassing me," she said calmly. "Leave, or I'll call the cops." "I just want to talk," he said. She didn't answer, just pulled out her phone and started dialing. Michael backed away. He felt like a ghost in his own life. By the end of the week, he had no job, no home, and almost no one left to call. Friends were pulling away. Some believed her version of the story, that he was angry and bitter, trying to get her money. But then he remembered something, the prenup. He found the copy in an old box he had taken from their house. His hands flipped through the pages until he found the line. "Any income, assets, or winnings gained after the 10th year of marriage shall be considered shared property." They had been married 12 years. She bought the ticket just 2 days before serving him. They were still legally married. For the first time in days, Michael felt something new. Not anger, not pain, clarity. She had lied. She had tried to erase him, but she forgot one thing. The law was on his side. Michael didn't waste any more time. The next morning, he walked into a small law office near the city centre. It wasn't fancy, but it was honest. He sat across from a lawyer named Mr. Carter, a calm man in his 50s who listened carefully to every word Michael said. Michael placed the prenup on the desk. His hands were still a little shaky, but his voice was clear. "We signed this 12 years ago. It says we share anything earned after 10 years. Mr. Carter read through the document in silence. Then he looked up. "You're right," he said. "If she bought that lottery ticket while you were still married, and it's after the 10-year mark, then by law, that money is marital property. She owes you half." Michael felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. He didn't want her money. He wanted their life back, or at least the truth. But he couldn't let her erase him like he meant nothing. Jessica didn't take the news well. Once she heard he'd hired a lawyer, her tone changed completely. She blocked his number. She froze their joint account. She started buying luxury items, new clothes, a condo downtown, a fancy car. Her social media lit up with photos from trips to Miami, LA, and Paris. She posted pictures with new people, new clothes, new smiles. People started whispering. Jessica began telling friends that Michael was obsessed, that he was angry and controlling, that he couldn't handle her success. Some believed her. Old friends stopped replying to his messages. He even overheard someone at the gas station calling him the crazy ex-husband trying to steal her winnings. He didn't know how she had turned everything around so fast. It broke him. He went quiet for days, slept in the back seat of his car, ate fast food when he could afford it. Some nights, he didn't eat at all. He drove out to the cemetery one afternoon and sat beside his mother's grave. He hadn't been there in years. "I don't know what I'm doing anymore, Mum," he whispered. "She says I'm nothing, and I'm starting to believe her." The wind was soft that day. The sun was low. Michael sat there for hours, saying nothing, just breathing. Memories came back, moments he had buried. Jessica crying the night before her nursing exam, saying she didn't belong in college. Michael holding her close, telling her she was stronger than she knew. Jessica breaking down when her dad passed. Michael cooking her favorite meal, sitting beside her in silence for hours, just being there. Jessica telling him she didn't think she'd ever feel secure in life. Michael promising, "You'll never go through anything alone again." He kept those promises. She didn't. Jessica was now using her money like a weapon. She hired a top lawyer. She told people the prenup didn't matter, that Michael was only going after her because he was broke and bitter. But the truth was simple. He was owed what was fair. Mr. Carter told him not to give up. "They'll try to break you down," he said. "Stay steady. The truth's on your side." Still, it wasn't easy. Michael missed who he used to be. He missed the version of himself that believed in love, in loyalty, in kindness. He looked in the mirror and saw a man who had been stripped of almost everything, but he still had his dignity. Jessica tried everything. She filed for a protective order, claiming Michael was stalking her, even though all he had done was send one email through his lawyer. She told her new boyfriend that Michael had threatened her, though no police report was ever filed. The lies kept growing, but Michael held on. He started collecting proof, texts, dates, receipts, the original prenup, even old photos of them at the gas station where she bought the winning ticket. He remembered that day. He had filled the tank while she ran inside for a soda. She came out laughing, holding a ticket. "Lucky numbers," she had joked. He had smiled. He always liked that about her, how she could be light in dark moments. That moment felt like a lifetime ago. Now, he was alone, but not broken. He knew who he was, and no amount of money could take that away from him. He was ready to fight. The courtroom was quiet. Only the sound of papers turning and soft whispers could be heard. Michael sat beside his lawyer, Mr. Carter, wearing a plain suit. He didn't look like a man after millions. He looked tired but calm. Jessica sat across the room, dressed in a designer outfit, her makeup perfect. Her eyes avoided his. She had hired one of the best legal teams in the state. 3 lawyers sat around her, ready with documents and arguments. They looked confident, smug even. The trial started with Jessica's team speaking first. They claimed the lottery ticket was bought with her personal money, not from their joint account. They said she had always bought tickets on her own and that this one was no different. They argued that the winnings were hers alone and that Michael had no right to any of it. Jessica sat with her arms crossed, nodding as her lawyer spoke. Then it was Mr. Carter's turn. He stood up, calm and clear. "Your Honor," he said, "we have bank records showing that on the day the winning ticket was bought, Jessica used their shared account to pay for groceries. The ticket was purchased at the same time." He held up printed records. "Here is the transaction. Same day, same location." The courtroom shifted. Even Jessica's lawyers leaned in. But Mr. Carter wasn't done. "We also have a witness," he said. The door opened, and a man in a gas station uniform walked in. He looked nervous but firm. "I remember them," he said. "They came in together. The man paid for gas. The woman bought a scratch card and a lottery ticket while checking out. They were joking about being lucky." "Are you sure it was both of them?" the judge asked. "Yes, sir," the clerk replied. They looked like a couple. Jessica's face changed. Her jaw clenched. Her eyes started to water, but she held it in. Mr. Carter continued. According to the prenuptial agreement signed by both parties, any earnings after the 10th year of marriage are shared 50-50. This ticket was bought after 12 years of marriage. That is clear. Jessica was called to the stand next. She tried to explain that the money was hers. She said Michael hadn't supported her for years. She said he was just bitter and wanted her success. But her voice started to shake. The judge interrupted her. "Ms. Moore," he said firmly, "you were still legally married. You used a joint account. You claimed to be single on the lottery form just 2 days before filing for divorce." Jessica looked down. Her hands were shaking. Her lawyer placed a hand on her shoulder, but she didn't respond. The judge looked at both sides. "The court rules that Mr. Moore is entitled to 50% of the winnings. $4 million. Gasps filled the room. Jessica said nothing. She didn't even look at Michael. The trial ended. Reporters waited outside the courthouse. But Michael walked out quietly through the back. He didn't want attention. He just wanted peace. Weeks passed. Michael started packing up his things from storage, going through old boxes from the house they once shared. Inside one of the boxes was a worn-out journal. It had Jessica's handwriting on the cover. He hesitated, then opened it. Most of the pages were filled with random notes, to-do lists, and memories. But near the back, he found a single page that made his hands freeze. It read, "One day, I'll escape this life, no matter who I have to betray." His breath caught in his throat. She had planned this. Maybe not the lottery, but the escape, the betrayal, the lie. She had been waiting for a way out and never told him. Michael closed the journal slowly. He didn't cry. He didn't curse. He just sat there, quiet, letting the truth settle in. It wasn't just a mistake. It wasn't a sudden decision. She had been ready to leave him behind for a long time. Now, finally, he knew. Michael stepped out of the courtroom and took a deep breath. For the first time in a long time, he felt light. It wasn't just about the money. It was about getting his life back. He wasn't angry anymore. He was free. He moved to Atlanta, a city he had always liked. It had music, energy, and people who didn't know his story. He found a small space in a quiet neighborhood, not too fancy, but full of charm. With the money he had, he turned it into something special. He named it the Blue Note Cafe. It was a cozy jazz cafe with soft lights, wooden tables, and warm colors. He decorated it with old records, framed pictures of jazz legends, and memories of a dream he once let go. Now, he brought that dream back to life. Every Friday night, Michael played the piano. His fingers moved gently over the keys. The crowd listened in silence, moved by the way he played, like someone who had felt everything and survived. People started to smile when they saw him. They didn't know about Jessica or the court case. They just saw a man who loved music and poured his heart into every note. Meanwhile, Jessica's life took a turn. The IRS found out she had lied on her lottery claim form. She had said she was single and left out Michael's name. Now they were investigating her for tax fraud. She had to pay large fines and answer questions she wasn't ready for. The people who once praised her started to distance themselves. Her social media went quiet. Her name appeared in news stories, not for success, but for scandal. She lost her new condo, then her job, then her reputation. Michael didn't smile at her pain. He didn't wish her harm. He simply moved on. One day, a woman named Lena walked into the cafe. She came every Thursday afternoon, always ordered tea, and always sat by the window with a book. She had kind eyes and a quiet laugh. They didn't fall in love right away. They became friends first. They talked about books, music, family. She never asked about his past, only about who he was now, and that meant everything to him. With part of his money, Michael started a small fund for people who had gone through painful divorces or financial betrayal. It helped them find housing, legal help, or counseling. He didn't put his name on it. He just wanted to give others a chance to rebuild, like he had. Months passed, then a year. Michael no longer woke up thinking about what he lost. He thought about the life he had built. It was quieter, smaller, but full of peace. He still had the old journal with Jessica's note in it. He didn't read it again. He kept it in a drawer, not out of hate, but as a reminder of what he'd come through. He was no longer bitter, just wiser. Michael walked out of the courtroom with his lawyer beside him. The sky was clear for the first time in days. It felt like something had lifted off his shoulders. He had just won $4 million, but more importantly, he had won his freedom. The truth had come out. Jessica couldn't lie anymore. The world saw who she really was. He didn't go back to the old house. That place was full of memories, both good and bad. Instead, he packed his things, closed that chapter, and moved to Atlanta, a city full of music, hope, and new beginnings. Michael found a small, empty building on a quiet street. It had old brick walls and wooden floors. Most people walked past it without a second look, but Michael saw something else. He saw a dream. He used part of the money to turn the place into a jazz cafe. He called it the Blue Note. It wasn't big, but it was warm and full of life. The lights were soft, the chairs were comfortable, and every wall held pieces of jazz history, records, posters, and pictures of the legends. Every Friday night, Michael played the piano on a small stage near the corner. At first, only a few people came, but word spread. His music had feeling, the kind that touched people deep inside. The cafe filled up week by week. Some people came for the food, others for the music, but they all stayed for the peace they felt there. Jessica's life was falling apart. After the court case, the IRS began looking into her finances. She had signed the lottery ticket claiming she was single. That was a lie. She had underreported the winnings and failed to list Michael. The government wasn't happy. They fined her a large amount. Her face was in the news again, but not as a winner. Now she was being investigated for fraud. Her new friends pulled away. Her boss let her go. The money started to slip through her hands. She was no longer the woman smiling in the photo with the check. She was alone. Michael didn't celebrate her pain. He didn't need revenge. He just focused on living his life. One afternoon, while setting up chairs for an evening show, he noticed a woman sitting quietly by the window. She had a notebook in her lap and a gentle smile on her face. Her name was Ava. She had been coming for a few weeks, always sitting in the same spot, always listening. They started talking, first about music, then books, then life. She didn't ask about his past. She wanted to know who he was now, the man who played piano with so much emotion, who ran a cafe that made strangers feel like family. They grew close slowly. There was no rush, no pretending. She saw him, really saw him, and that felt better than anything he had known in a long time. Michael also started something else. He donated part of his money to a small foundation that helped people who had been left behind in their marriages, men and women who had been betrayed, abandoned, or hurt. He didn't put his name on it. He didn't want credit. He just wanted to help. Time passed. Michael still had quiet days when memories came back, but they didn't hurt like before. He had new memories now, laughter, music, and moments that felt real. He wasn't bitter anymore. He had let that go. He had learned. He had healed. He was free. Thanks so much for watching till the end. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, share, leave a comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories. See you next time. Hi.